our Honorable Chancellor and the Governor of UP, Srimati Anandiben Patel ji, where we were told about the importance of the villages in our policy making and the way higher education needs to strengthen itself, to update itself, and the need to strengthen the farmer so that we can get through any challenges through self dependence. In the subsequent sessions, Professor Manmohan Krishna discussed how COVID 19 has impacted our political and economic system. Professor Krishna Kumar gave a wonderful presentation on how our immune systems respond through various levels of security mechanisms in the face of an imminent danger. Dr. Vatsala Mishra, in her very lucid and clear presentation, reflecting her decades of training as a doctor in communicating complex scientific information in the easiest way possible, told us about what are the precautions we need to take in our day to day conduct to avoid infection by a proper and also a judicious use of personal protection equipment. And finally, we had Dr. Shalini Chandra, who told us how people are living and coping with corona in an advanced society like Singapore, giving us a possible roadmap. It's not like we can actually implement those, but it's kind of a roadmap to draw a leaf out of and to equip ourselves for any future emergency. Today, we start our session uh, and to welcome to the first session of this international conference. It is an honor to welcome Dr. Anugrahini Shirish. Dr. Anuragini is an associate professor at the Department of Technology, Information and Management in the Department of Institute of Mines Telecom Business School. It's an elite public business school in France, and she holds a master's degree in law from National University in Singapore and a PhD in management from the University of Paris Saint-Clair. She has approximately 4 years of international legal consulting experience in the domain of corporate and IT laws, and she's an advocate in India. She's qualified and she can practice. Presently, she's serving in the executive committee of LITEM, a joint research laboratory. She's also the academic director of the master's level executive major program called Business Information Systems from the Digital Era since 2017. She co-leads the activities of Information Systems Research Team, SMART 2. Her research interests include social, behavioral, cultural, and legal aspects related to information systems, specifically in the context of emerging collaborative technologies. Her Communication and Association of Information Systems and International Journal of Information Management has also presented her work in several premier IS and management conferences, including International Conference on Information Systems, Academy of Management, Pacific Area Conference on Information Systems, and American Conference on Information Systems, among others. She has been honored with several awards, including second prize at the Sphinx Best Thesis Award. It's an honor and a privilege to have her with us today, and she will be speaking on the individuals coping and times of COVID crisis. Something very relevant to us today because the way we are looking at the things, the way we are looking at the situation, we have to understand how mental health issues are to be
भाई
handled.
वीडियो बहुत साफ नहीं आ रहा है.
Uh, shall I continue? Over to you, Anuragini, for your presentation.
Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. I thought you would brief it, but you in fact used all the information. So it is a great privilege to be part of this international webinar. I would like to specifically thank the Vice Chancellor of the university, Professor Sangeeta Srivastava, for giving me this opportunity, and also the entire organizing committee for having me here. I'm particularly excited to share my thoughts about how individuals cope with the COVID crisis using technology. Just share the screen. It. Yeah, there seemed to be an issue. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the topic that I will be discussing today is on individual coping at times of COVID crisis and the role of positive technology for well-being. And how I would like to go about with this presentation. Basically, I want to understand how what this COVID crisis means to all of us. How does it impact us as individuals? Secondly, I will draw upon psychological theories of stress and coping that will help us to understand how we can actually deal with this crisis in a better manner. And finally, I will talk about the role of positive technology that is very important for our well-being. And I will have share with you a few concluding remarks. So I had asked this question. I mean, to understand how people actually feel in the time of COVID crisis. What are the emotions that are going through us? So I asked a few people in France to give their opinion, and this is what they have said. And I'd like to have the session interactive. So I would really request you all to go to menti.com, which is mentioned in the title slide, and use the code 386106 and answer the two questions I've asked about the crisis and how you feel about it. And your results will be displayed dynamically in this presentation. So I'll give you a few minutes to go online to menti.com and use the code 386106 and answer for me using the slider. Your feelings. How are you feeling? In the past 1 month, how have you felt?
Will it be all right if they can interact here in the chat box, because some of them might...
Yes, definitely. Those who
Yeah.
cannot, wouldn't want to go to another website can actually interact, provide me their comments in the chat.
Yes, so जो लोग रिस्पॉन्ड करना चाहें और चैट बॉक्स का इस्तेमाल करना चाहें वो चैट बॉक्स का इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. अदरवाइज दे कैन गो टू द वेबसाइट दैट डॉक्टर अनुरागिनी हैज पॉइंटेड आउट, menti.com, and वहाँ पे आप अपना रिस्पॉन्स दे सकते हैं.
We can see that some of you have responded. We can see dynamically the responses are coming in. So I'll wait for a few more seconds. We see many of you are feeling anxious during this crisis period. Also, some of you are worried and depressed. We see restlessness. So anxiety seemed to be on the highest until now.
It's a young group of people, so naturally at a very crucial juncture in life. So for many of them, this is this would have been a do or die or a make or break year. So
exactly.
Anxiety levels are bound to be very high here.
I agree.
Yeah.
So we can see several responses. You can keep it going. There are two questions in this survey, which I would use the other questions. Okay. So as we can see that, as you rightly pointed out, this particular crisis has led people to consider several issues that they never thought about before, which is leading them to believe, leading them to consider or have this impression of depression or anxiety, and they are confused or worried. Many of them are sleep deprived. All of this is not a good sign of a well-being at all. but we need to understand what we are going through to handle this. So we see 16 of you all have responded, and most of them feel a sense of anxiety, worry. Many of them are worried. So understanding how to deal with these emotions are very, very important. And that's exactly what I will be talking about in this presentation. Okay, so what is actually health? Health is well-being. That's what I would like to say. So well-being has three components to it, because it is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. That is the definition of health. So when you're healthy, you mean that you're actually having good well-being. And when you have good well-being, it also means that you are mentally, physically, and socially happy. So mental well-being is to something to do with, are you doing things that give you meaning and purpose in life? Physically, are you feeling vitality and energy? Socially, are you feeling connected to a community? So all of these three elements are important for us when we talk about well-being. So the crisis itself, as rightly pointed out earlier, has already indicated by the WHO. It says that many of the frontline workers and caregivers have elevated level of stress and anxiety. They have high levels of loneliness, depression, and some people are also resorting to self-harm and suicidal behaviors. And all of this, the WHO is saying that it's expected to rise in the coming months, simply because of this pandemic. So the crisis itself has really changed the way we look at our lives, from not only the physical side of it, but mentally as well. Especially for general public, the quarantine measures and the lockdown has created a lot of impact on how we can cope with the pandemic. So first thing, we are struggling to understand how we can preserve our past practices, keep our usual routine going. How can we keep our livelihoods intact in some cases? And how can we do the activities that we used to like or love in this kind of pandemic situation? The other aspect is, how do we adapt to new ways of challenges that are coming about? That is increased level of work-life conflict that we see, adjusting to technology overload, and also to the unknown threat this virus poses. So all of this has really changed the way we would cope with it. So I would like to highlight that it's not only important to flatten the infection curve, but we need to also flatten the mental ill health curve. Past pandemic experiences have clearly shown that people who have died out of the pandemic itself is much lower than the people who die because of the mental ill health. So in a pandemic situation, it's very important to look at how we can manage our mental health. And we know that public authorities are not devoting enough funds to managing mental health. So it becomes the individual responsibility to manage the mental health. So this is the topic that I will be covering, and we need to be aware that we have certain emotions which are going astray. We feel a lot of anxiety, worry. Some of us are very much worried for the future, or we are not happy with the situation. So continuous experiencing this in a continuous manner will lead us to a lot of mental health issues. So this is the other survey that I asked you all to answer, which you have already answered. We can see that your life after COVID seemed to be highly uncertain. So most of us feel that there is a sense of uncertainty and we don't know how to handle this crisis very well. And this is very important for us to manage, because if we don't manage this, we will suffer from mental illness. So I will move on to talk to you about how theoretical literature on stress and coping can throw some light into how we can manage the stress response that we are feeling. So particularly, I'm using this theory called generalized unsafety theory of stress to understand how we can cope with this crisis.
Dr.
So according,
Dr.
yeah,
Anuragini, I would just interrupt. People who have questions to ask can put their questions up in the chat box.
yes, but the only thing is, can I answer the questions at the end, or somebody
Yeah,
can make notes?
I'll put up the questions to you. at the end
Okay,
of the, we'll have an interactive session for question answers. So
definitely.
I request people, instead of raising their hands now, just put the questions in the chat box.
Sorry, that's because I'm not actually looking at the audience at the same time as I'm presenting, so I might not be
you need,
aware.
no, you needn't.
Okay,
I'll ask the questions.
definitely.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to
Please,
take the questions at the end of the
yeah,
presentation.
please continue.
And so this theory of generalized unsafety theory of stress, what does it say? It says that the primary role of the prefrontal cortex of our brain is to put a brake on this stress responses that we feel. Stress responses are nothing but, the old survival response that we have when we are faced with a threat. So these responses trigger the survival instinct in us. But prefrontal cortex is responsible for stopping this stress responses that we feel. But the prefrontal cortex will only do that when it feels a sense of safety, which means that whenever we feel safe, we do not have stress. And whenever we are stressed, we do not feel safe. And the feeling of safety is a very unconscious feeling. We can't really say when this is the safe thing. And the same applies to when we are stressed. We are not even aware that we are stressed in many cases. So these prolonged responses to stress can lead us to a generalized unsafety perception. So this is what is happening in this crisis scenario. We are all feeling a generalized unsafety the way the environment is shaping in because of the crisis. So this theory also says that specifically there are few people who are compromised, who have a compromised context, which means people who are old, people who are already having illnesses or experiencing some mental issues would definitely not be able to stop this stress response. So they would be feeling more unsafe. And so are people who are isolated. So isolation takes away the social contact, which is very important for well-being. I had shared this with you before. So isolation is isolating people or people who feel isolated from social contact, which is very common in uh, a pandemic situation, feel cannot exercise the prefrontal cortex enough to stop the stress responses. So putting this all in the context of coronavirus, and we look at what are the environmental conditions that provide us this unsafety perception, we see that social distancing measures does not allow us to tap into our social resources. Limited contact with nature can cause us a feeling of unsafety, fear of infection, which is looming high in everybody, as well as isolation of certain isolation perception that we might feel if you're infected and you have to stay away from your family or you don't have your family. The case with a lot of immigrant workers who are trying to reach to their family in India, they might have felt highly isolated and unsafe at those point in times. So these kind of situations, which is prolonged for many, many months now, causes us this perception of generalized unsafety. People start thinking about fear, negative thinking starts coming in, we start have self-talks, we have ruminations, anxiety, and depression are some of the perceptions that people feel at the time of crisis, which is very normal. So what did we need to understand is this generalized unsafety can lead to a prolonged chronic stress response, which then is responsible for high mental illness. It is also responsible for non-communicable disease, such as heart diseases, diabetes, and blood pressure. So we know that feeling stressed is a normal automatic response. We don't have control over it. We can control it if we feel safe. I think someone else is talking at the same time.
Anuragji,
Yes.
Anuragji, please mute all.
Okay.
Yeah, please continue.
So we see that generalized unsafety leads to prolonged chronic stress response, which leads to low mental illness, low mental health. So how do we cope with all of this? We can respond to the stress better when we are actually aware and are mindful of how our body is reacting and what are our mental representation at a given time. This is what we did in the first slide. I asked you to share with me what you feel, how you are feeling, because this is our mental representation of the scenario. Knowing this is very, very crucial to handle our mental health. So the next thing is we need to learn. So the prefrontal cortex, I told you, is responsible for stopping the stress response. And how does this do it? It looks for safety signals in the environment. And how do we learn what is a safety signal? We learn it as a child, and as we grow, we learn what are the safe environments that we have. As you can see, many of us would be very happy that it's Friday, because somehow psychologically we think Saturday and Sunday is a weekend, we can relax. So the whole week we are kind of like automatically stressed. And when the weekend comes, we kind of relax, right? Some of them. And I think researchers, we don't even relax on the weekend. So we kind of continue this automatic stress process, but we also learn the safety signals as we grow. But when we become adult, learning of these safety signals becomes a bit tricky, and we need to put in more effort. So how do we turn this always stress response on? How do we stop this? So we need to look for safety signals in our environment, which means that doing nothing is not an option. If you are stressed and if you don't do anything, it's just going to become worse. And that's what the theory says. So it becomes worse, and it's medically proven as well. The more chronic stress we face, lesser mental health we have, and more non-communicable disease, like I shared with you earlier. So this is my idea of places or environments or signals of safety. I believe that any place or anything that gives you a sense of love, hope, pleasantness, compassion, empathy, or wisdom or clarity in decision making, all of these qualities, when it's present in an environment or in a person or in a thing or an activity that you do, will really help you to find the safety that you're looking for. Because if you're feeling safe, there is no stress, right? However, there's one tricky thing. Choosing to be positive is 3 times more difficult, but 3 times more effective than choosing to be negative, which means it's not automatic for us to be positively thinking about something. It's automatic for us to be negative, but it's not automatic for us to be positive. When we want to overcome crisis-like situation, we need to put in extra effort to become more positive in our outlook, and therefore we can counterbalance this negativity that automatically starts in our system because of survival instinct. So there are 2 kinds of ways in which we can cope. One is problem-focused coping, and the other is emotion-focused coping. This is what the literature says. Problem-focused coping is all the speakers who in this webinar who spoke yesterday, they were targeting this concept of problem-focused coping. These are things that we can do about the situation, which we can control. For example, we can control if we are going to get the infection or not. Yes, because if you follow certain sanitary safety rules and sanitary solutions provided by the government or the people, or maintain social distancing, we are sure not to get the virus, right? So, and we also spoke about immunity and having a balanced diet. So eating well can prevent us from getting sick. We know that, so we should do that. And also having a fixed routine and how that is important, and maintaining a fitness level is also linked to increasing your immunity and staying safe at this time of crisis. However, what do we do with all these worries and depressive feelings and fear that we have, right? These are not something we can really control in the environment. And sometimes we don't even know what is causing these fear. Why are we depressed? Why are we angry for the past 1 month? Why are we shouting at our kids or, our loved ones? So how do we handle these situations which are uncontrollable? For that, like I said, we need to first become aware of our emotions. Then we can also seek connections with friends and family and share with them your fears. It's okay to share your fears with your family, and they will provide you some emotional support. And by just listening, when you share something, when people listen, that itself relieves part of the stress. So we need to also actively change the cognitive representation. So if we think the world is going to come to an end, we think about something contrary, like hot chocolate or love or something that makes you feel happy, right? This is the only way we can actually overcome this negativity that is looming high in aspects which are uncontrollable. And most importantly, we need to learn how to boost the executive function, the prefrontal cortex I was talking to you about. How do we strengthen it? We know scientifically that deep breathing exercises, mindfulness training, meditation, and physical activity actually help you a lot in boosting the executive function. So the prefrontal cortex is the one that's responsible for cognitive flexibility, that one that makes the right decision, where you can use your wisdom to choose the right from wrong. And this is also the place that regulates your emotion. So we know that by doing these exercises like deep breathing, mindfulness practice, or meditation, it helps us. So I've spoken enough about now how coping can be done, how stress automatically takes over our life and how we can cope. But I want to also, because I'm an information systems professor, I would like to also throw some light on how positive technologies can help us in all of this so that we can use this at this appropriate moment of this pandemic situation we are facing in order to increase our well-being. So, what is positive technology? Positive technology is just a scientific and applied approach for improving the quality of our personal experience with the goal of increasing our wellness and generating strength and resilience in individual. Yesterday, Professor Shalini Chandra in a talk ended by saying that all of this digital tool and technology will only work when people are resilient, right? This is exactly what we are talking about. How can we become resilient? And one of the solutions that I'm offering is to use positive technology to increase your well-being. So positive technologies are also kind of correlated to this new emerging field of psychology that talks about positive psychology. This psychology says that when we have positive emotions or when we are positively engaged, we feel connected to the society and it promotes our adaptive behavior. Adaptive behavior are basically how we can cope with a situation when faced with stressful aspects in it. So positive technology can provide vitality, meaning, and purpose that we are looking for in a well-being context. So there are many different ways we can classify positive technology. One classification that I'm taking to explain here is they have classified the technology into three different types based on how much it can support the well-being concept. So positive technologies are divided into hedonic, social, and eudaimonic technologies. Hedonic technologies are simply those technologies which, by its design, it alters the mood and gives you a positive experience. So it 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 gives you a pleasurable experience in a momentary manner. Okay, and social technologies are those that will help us to feel a sense of connectedness to others. So when we feel a sense of connectedness, we feel safety. When we feel safety, it then leads to our well-being. So these technologies, in most of the social networking sites or any other well-being um, pro-social activity that you can involve using technology will form part of this social aspect of positive technology. And eudaimonic is the other kind of technology, technological design, which helps you to offers you experience of engagement and self-actualizing experiences. This caters to a much higher level. You're doing something that is much higher than yourself, or you're engaging in an activity that is extremely meaningful and purposeful to you, and the technology allows you to do it. So I personally believe that eudaimonic technology that allows you to grow as a person and experience uh, this long-standing engagement and self-actualizing experience will actually help you to cope for future crises as well. So it develops your coping self-efficacy to some extent when you use these technology on a regular basis. So again, just to give you a few examples of what are the positive technologies, when I talk about hedonic positive technology, these are just to give us a pleasure. It gives us positive mood and pleasure. So this could be like listening to online music, watching TV, or playing games that relieve stress. Some of it is also for relaxation, that you would use some tools to relax momentarily when you're feeling a lot of stress. And social positive technologies could be contributing to a Wikipedia article where you want to contribute to the social knowledge building process that is happening in this platform. Or maybe you are networking using a Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or other social networking sites to be in touch with your own family and friends, or with meaningful uh, social community that helps you to share your share what develop shared goals and achievements along with the others. And you could also use like social technology could also mean using YouTubes or blogs where you post your information so that others benefit. So these kind of technologies offer you this experience of connectedness with the others. And eudaimonic, like I said, it offers you a flow experience. It allows you to grow as a person. Many of the meditation apps, mindfulness training apps, or listening to learned masters and their talks, all of this will actually help you in not only involving in an engaged practice, but also help you in reaching to higher goals, such as in case of yoga, where you're aiming to um, reach to the God or God within you, for example. This is something higher than you. So this gives you a self-actualizing experience as such. So this one technology is what I use. I mean, I thought I should share with you how this particular technology called Hearts app actually allows, does have features, hedonic features, social features, as well as eudaimonic features. This app, for example, allows me to connect to any trainer and meditate together for half an hour. So, which means it builds a sense of shared connection with somebody who's sitting far away in a different country and meditating together. So, it makes me feel connected. And the feature of relaxation and guided relaxation offered by this app, I use it quite often when I'm stressed and I want to just relax a little bit. I just put on this guided relaxation and I feel a bit calm, and I can go to sleep, for example. Then the other aspect of this technology, it also helps me to learn this practice of meditation called heartfulness, which is very important for which builds my engagement to meditation, and meditation in turn boosts my executive cognitive function. So I feel like I'm involved in a purposeful act which helps me to grow as a person. So I'm going to share with you a few other positive technologies which I haven't used, but we can find many positive technology that specifically target mental health. And like I told you, we need to improve our mental health. We are always on this automatic stress response. We need to stop it. And for that, we need to strengthen our executive brain. And for that, we need to use tools that can help us do that. For example, here there is iSmart, for example, is an app that helps you to detect and manage stress. Sleepio is another app that helps you to overcome insomnia if that is one of your symptoms. And similarly, we have a lot of mood altering apps. Center Acts is mitigates auditory hallucination and schizophrenia and through virtual reality. I mean, all these words will seem as if are we mental patients or what? No, we are not. But we do experience, especially in the crisis, pandemic type of crisis, we might experience these symptoms, which, if you do not treat, uh, manage yourself with some self help tools, can lead to a prolonged chronic symptom. So, it is always good to use these tools to manage and come out of these issues before it becomes a chronic situation. So there are also other commercially yet scientifically inspired designs, such as WhatsApp. This is not WhatsApp, but it's WhatsApp. It says that it's a general stress management tool that decreases anxiety, depression, and can also help you manage anger. We have some chatbots that help you to give you therapeutic conversations like VBot. We also have Pacifier, which is very interesting, which helps you to track your health, track your anxiety level, and it also acts like a health tracker to tell you where you're doing, what you're doing, and when you did this, did you feel happy? Or when you did that, did you not feel happy? So you can track your health and you can track where are the safety signals. And we also have these smart wearable devices like eSmarter, which uses skin sensation, which translates a skin sensation into neural activity and tells you when you feel connected or when you feel stressed or when you feel more mindful. And other interesting thing is Unite app. This is very interesting because it actually uh, combines meditation, breathing technique, gaming experiences, and biofeedback. Biofeedback is actually tells you if your heart rate variability is low or high. And according to the theory that I just shared with you, the generalized unsafety stress theory, when you have low heart rate variability, which means it is a symbol, it is a sign that you are safe. So we could use biofeedback kind of technology and virtual reality and use these apps to actually guide us better in understanding where we stand. Are we safe or are we stressed? And how can we manage these things? So other low-end technologies, which are also important in my opinion at this specific times of crisis, is voice that cares. For example, it's a call center managed by Heartfulness Institute and especially created for people who are feeling stressed during lockdown and isolation. If you're one of those, I would recommend that you call the toll-free number, talk to them, and they will share with you. Or there's a listening ear basically to guide you when you're emotionally uh, dealing with some crisis. So also we have heard that coronavirus pandemic, especially when China released the lockdown measures in Wuhan, we saw that the cases of divorce rates have tripled in the city. So this is very startling, but it's also very obvious when two people stay together in lockdown for a long time, and if they do not get along very well and they have not developed patience or tolerance to each other, there could be possibility of many conflicts. And I'm just giving you because most of the audience are from India. One of the websites that handle domestic violence and stress is the National Commission for Women, which offers you a which offers you a telephone number where you can call and you can talk and seek some help if that is needed. And we also have this issue of fake news that is really troubling all of us. Because if we don't have the appropriate news, it can influence the way we think about the pandemic. It can increase our anxiety level. It can increase our fear about the infection and so on. So it's important to also consume right information from the media. And the government of India, I think, has come up with this chatbot, which is called MyGov Corona Help Desk, which gives you, as you type the question, if this is the right information or not. And so you should try and consume um, correct information about the crisis. And this is a low-tech strategy to use positive technology for your well-being. So finally, I would like to just share with you that how positive technology mediates this relationship between generalized unsafety and prolonged stress response. So when you use positive technology, we are actually increasing our emotional well-being, both physical, mental, and social well-being at the same time. So this reduces the impact of this generalized unsafety perception that we have, and therefore reduces our chances of being completely mentally ill or uh, contracting some non-communicable disease in this pandemic situation. So positive technologies is both can be used for reactive strategies as well as for proactive coping for the future. So to conclude, what we need to do is learn to stay safe and help others. So how do we learn to stay safe? We have to strengthen our executive brain with meditation, yoga, physical activity. This is the only way that can put a brake on the automatic stress response we feel, which causes uh, low mental health. And we could use positive technology in a wise manner instead of getting addicted to it. We can use it to make us feel safe, loved, cared, engaged, happy, connected. And I believe that eudaimonic positive technologies or features, a technology that has this feature of self-growth, will help you to handle emotional and uncontrollable aspect of the stress in a better manner. So it is not the situation that makes us stress. We need to learn to identify the safety signals in the environment for our own well-being to remain stress-free during the COVID crisis. So thank you very much for your participation and for your listening. If you have any feedback, you can contact me And I have listed down few resources that might be useful for finding out what are the different apps in this mental health arena, if you're interested.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anuragini. This
Yeah, so I
is,
can take questions.
yeah. First, there is an observation actually from Mahendra Pratap, and he has said in his observation, this is very interesting. He has said in his observation that positive technology should promote creativity for the well being of the globe as a whole. So, I would like your response to that. Can this is it possible to use this kind of a positive technology to promote a kind of positivity across the world, because this is something which is happening at the global level. So, some concerted effort by various organizations at the global level.
Yeah, in fact, the technology that I shared with you, the Hearts app, is a global technology, and people from 130 countries use it, and which is like really prevalent all over because it is also supported by a charity, which physically you can go and learn meditation as well. So there globally there are actually hundreds of technology, and the simplest and the easiest technology that you could use is uh, Facebook and WhatsApp. Use technology that are linked to it. There are lots of chat bots that are linked to Facebook that offers you a kind of mental support.
Yeah,
Like
this.
VBot is linked to Facebook. So it's kind of already all prevalent pervasively. So all of this is actually, it's a very interesting comment, and we need to think about how to use this technology at a global scale so people benefit.
Yeah, chatbots are very interesting. I once had an interaction with chatbots, and like for two and a half hours, we were chatting. It's almost like talking to a friend. It's
Yeah.
very
No,
interactive.
it's very very interesting. Especially we can imagine. I think India, we are a community. Indian community, we are very social and we're a community-driven culture. Whereas many of the Western countries, people are very individualistic in nature, and it's very easy to feel loneliness in those situations. So a chatbot is actually a saving grace for these kind of people who are isolated in their minds.
Yeah. The second question is that Sadhguru has once said that positive thinking, what we talk of inculcating positive thinking. So, the process of positive thinking is something which is artificial, and it can actually lead, if used over a prolonged period of time, it can actually lead to a situation of stress. Do you think that the eudaimonic positive technology is a way out of this kind of an artificial building up of positive mindset?
Yes, I would say so, but there is nothing called artificial. I mean, there is nothing called real. Feeling of positive emotions and feeling of negative emotions, both are just a feeling. Nothing is real, right? There's no reality in this. It's subjective. So if you
Positive.
build positive emotions just temporarily, it's going to help you. I wouldn't think that it will impact you negatively at all. Um, but anything done in excess might not be suitable. So I wouldn't say that go ahead, use all of these technology to the maximum or every day, use it or use it on a regular basis in moderation. There is no need to do anything in excess.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
would
yeah,
be my
yeah,
take.
yeah.
Yeah,
Especially concerning the hedonic, and
exactly.
is that is
Because it's
something that's
because
tricky.
it doesn't develop you as a person from
But as a
inside.
person, yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Anurag. This is a wonderful session, and
No, welcome.
actually, this is this is something that we are all trying to
Thank
cope
you.
up with. Yes, we're trying to
Welcome.
cope up with. So this is once again a very informative session where you talked about positive technology and how you pointed out the three ways: the hedonic, the social positive, and the eudaimonic positive technology. Before we move ahead, I would like to welcome to our second day sessions, vice chancellors who have connected with us over the net. And these include, and it's an honor to have all of you here, sirs and madam. Dr. Narendra Kumar Taneja from Meerut University is the Vice Chancellor of Meerut University. Alok Rai ji, who's the Vice Chancellor of Lucknow University, Vishampayan ji, who's the Vice Chancellor of Bundelkhand University, and Professor Nilima Gupta, who's the Vice Chancellor of Kanpur University. It's an honor to have you here, and I hope that these lectures, these sessions help all of us in building those bridges through which we can get over this crisis. Once again, I thank Dr. Anuragini Shirish for her wonderful discourse. It was very informative, very interesting. Thank you so much for finding time to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Anuragini. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Our next speaker for the day is Dr. Shailja Mathur. She is a
आज का दिखा रहा था तो कर लेते हैं सर्टिफिकेट मिलेगा तब भी नहीं मिलेगा
Anurag ji, please mute the participants. Yes. Our next speaker for the day is Dr. Shailja Mathur. She's a certified lifestyle. She's a certified lifestyle coach and a certified dietitian in diabetes care in Education Department of Family and Community Health Services, Rutgers State University, New Jersey, USA. She has a very long experience as a nutritionist in nutrition education and outreach on behalf of the Rutgers Cooperative Extension at the national, state, and country level. As a public health trained registered dietitian, her more recent focus has been on unveiling a wellness and chronic disease prevention initiative for South Asian population in collaboration with Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital and the Rutgers University Medical College. Currently, she serves as a nutrition specialist and community liaison of the South Asian Total Health Initiative, called SATHI, and serves on the advisory committee. She's a board member of the Middlesex County Health and Wellness Council, and she has garnered great amount of some thousands of federal and state dollars. She serves and the principal investigator for several of these programs. Some of these grants target chronic diseases prevention in South Asian population living in New Jersey. Therefore, her focus is on the South Asian population, and I'm sure what she's going to say here is going to be very relevant to us. Dr. Shailja will be speaking on chronic diseases and COVID-19 as India struggles with almost explosive levels of diabetes. I think this is going to be very useful for us in these times. Dr. Shailja Mathur, it's an honor to have you here with us today.
Dr. Kapoor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You can continue.
And you can see the slide?
Yes, we can see the slide. You can continue. Yes, we can hear
okay,
you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Kapoor, for the kind introduction. Namaskar, everyone. Welcome to all the listeners and all the many vice chancellors who have joined us today. I bring you greetings from the United States of America. I'm very honored and humbled to be one of the invited speakers for this international webinar. I would like to thank Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Professor Srivastav, and members of the organizing committee, Dr. Jaya Kapoor, Dr. Shivani Srivastav, and also the back-end person we keep hearing about, Mr. Anurag. It takes a team to organize an event like this, and especially to get speakers from across the world. I applaud everyone in this effort, and I have really enjoyed all the speakers. I was born in Allahabad, now Prayagraj. I attended Allahabad University and Banaras Hindu University. So I proudly call myself made in India. At this point in my life, I have spent more years in America than India, and today I am pleased to share some of what I have learned here in working with the South Asian population, and I hope that you will benefit from it. I've had the opportunity of doing a lot of research with South Asians and chronic disease living in the United States. But what remains the same, whether it is anywhere people of Indian origin living in any country in the world, of course, our culture, our food, and our hospitality takes center place. So let's see what it does to living with a chronic disease. So I started also my presentation by defining what health is, just like Dr. Anuragani Suresh. And many of you would have seen this definition. It came out in the 1940s from the World Health Organization, and it's still relevant after many, many decades, that health really is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. But it is not merely the absence of disease. And what an enlightening presentation right before me to talk about mental health. We also deal with a lot of stigma with mental health in South Asians here in the United States, where our community does not like to talk about it and does not want to deal with it. But I'm sure many of the tools that were discussed today would be helpful, and people can have more conversations about it. So now that we know what health is, let us now look at what determines health. These are the 4 pillars of health. Today, we will focus on nutrition, lifestyle, and our environment. These are the modifiable determinants that we can create a healthful change. So let's see what we can do and what we have control with. And while we are all talking about COVID-19, why are we talking about health? You've now had almost 2 days of presentations of dealing with the virus. We are talking about health because we are in the middle of a pandemic, and most of us have realized that health is our biggest wealth. What better time than this when we are locked down to focus on positivity and health? 94% of deaths around the world are in those with an underlying chronic disease, and most of these diseases, unfortunately, are related to diet and lifestyle. If there has ever been a time to focus on nutrition, it is now. The people at risk for COVID-19 are, of course, the elderly, the 65 years and older, but anyone who has an underlying medical condition, a chronic lung disease, emphysema, asthma, heart conditions, people who are undergoing cancer treatment, people undergoing organ transplants. If you smoke, you know that your risk for COVID-19 and its outcomes are much higher than other people. Anybody who has HIV or is going through treatment for HIV, you are all in that bucket. And if you are carrying extra weight in your body, you also fall in that same category. I want everyone to take a moment and look at yourself. Do you think you need to lose some weight? And that will be an answer for yourself. Anyone living with diabetes, kidney disease, or liver disease, all of them are vulnerable. These are all chronic conditions. It is not the virus that is killing us, but the inflammation that results from an immune system that is already on high alert in these diseases. that causes the very high numbers that we are seeing of people in the hospital. Obesity and poor metabolic health causes both an increased level of inflammation and immune suppression. So when the COVID-19 virus lands in a pre-inflamed or a chronic disease or a person with chronic disease, it is like putting petrol on a fire. There is an inflammation explosion, which the physicians call cytokine storm. Those of you that attended Professor Krishna Kumar's webinar on immunity yesterday, you can understand the many levels of immunity and how complex it is that he talked about. And all these people, this leads to the need for hospitalization, oxygen, ventilators. So as I began to prepare this presentation, I researched on the prevalence of these chronic diseases in the Indian population. And I found that diabetes tops the list. We're only behind China, where the prevalence of diabetes is concerned. And if we did a projection, up until the 2045, we still very strongly hold the second position behind China. So today's presentation will be focused on what you can do to better manage diabetes in this pandemic environment. And before I begin, I want to share some sobering statistics on this slide. For South Asians, diabetes occurs at a much younger age and unfortunately at a much lower weight. You can see that the prevalence of diabetes is 8.9% in India. And there are 88 million people in the Southeast Asia region that have diabetes. And if you notice, of the 88 million, 77 million of those live in our country of India. What do these numbers mean? This means that in a group of 100 people, at least 9 have full-blown diabetes. And this number really gets worse if we include prediabetes. The prevalence for prediabetes is 15%. Now, this would mean that 25 people in a group of 100 will have either diabetes or prediabetes. And this is just the tip of the iceberg because prediabetes is often asymptomatic, which means there are no symptoms for many years. All of us listening today know somebody that is living with diabetes, right? So what is diabetes? Everyone talks about diabetes, whether it's the Indians in America, in Europe, UK, or in India. We all hear this. Oh, I have diabetes. I don't want sugar. Diabetes is a very complex metabolic disease. So either your body cannot make enough insulin to break down your food into energy, or the insulin cannot do the job. And type 2 diabetes is the kind of diabetes that's the most common form of diabetes that's found in Indians. And we have now seen evidence all over the world, starting with Italy, Spain, UK, and now in America, that patients with diabetes require intensive care level of help if they are hospitalized for COVID-19. On the positive side, if you have a well-controlled diabetes, your health outcomes are much better. So we are going to try to keep this presentation more on the positive side and see what we can do so that we don't end up in that situation. And how do you know that you have diabetes? Because most people with diabetes often don't know that they have diabetes. You will often hear, I often hear in our South Asian population, participants coming to our community events that would say, I'm in the borderline. There is no borderline. Either you have prediabetes, diabetes, or no diabetes, right? And some of these numbers are here on the screen. it seems that we also live in a culture where we are pushing medications. We believe more in complementary modalities, and there is a clear denial to the acceptance of this disease. And something needs to be done about that. If you need to see how well your blood sugar numbers have been, there's this blood test which is called hemoglobin A1C, and it is a 3-month average of your blood sugar. This number tells your doctor, or if you see a dietitian, it tells your dietitian where your numbers are for the last 3 months. It is a really great tool that has been used all over the world in the last 5 years to see how people are managing their prediabetes condition or diabetes condition. Because those of you who are more familiar with diabetes would know that sometimes when we have a doctor's appointment with diabetes, the week before, we are often at our best behavior, so that when we go to the doctor and we have our blood test, the numbers are good and we get a green flag from the doctor. So here are some factors that contribute to diabetes. Genetics that we cannot change. Our race, we are born with it. Advancing age, we are all getting older every day. So what really boils down to is obesity, anxiety, stress, and any damage to our pancreas or our bodies. So consider your body a temple. Most of us have diabetes in our family history. That in itself is a contributing factor. And so we need to be mindful and we need to be taking care that we can somehow push it back as many years as possible. And so the two factors that we can influence ourselves are obesity, anxiety, and stress. So let's see what we can do with that. What you see here is the possible complications of diabetes that happen many years later. And sometimes if you're not diagnosed, suddenly when you're diagnosed, you have most of them present. So you will see in this picture that there is this whole network of blood vessel. And unfortunately, this disease damages the blood vessels all over your body. So your heart is one organ that's affected. You have twice as much risk of stroke if you have diabetes. You could end up having kidney disease and need dialysis. Your eyes could have retinopathy. There is, because it's a circulation disease and there is blood vessel damage, there's neuropathy, which means that your blood is not circulating that well in your extremities, which is your hands and your feet. And so you get numbness and tingling. You might have heard about people who get infections or wounds, and if they have diabetes, it takes much longer for them to heal. And some things that this one gum disease that often people don't talk about is also a complication of diabetes. If you do not manage your diabetes well, you often end up with bleeding gums and diseases in your mouth. So what can you do to avoid some of these complications? Or even in helping anybody that you know that has diabetes. And the top of my list, of course, being a dietitian, is meal planning, followed by physical activity, which would include any kind of exercise that you enjoy, taking your medications regularly, and making sure that you maintain your blood sugar at a normal level at a goal that your doctor or your physician has shared with you. So in this climate of COVID-19, what could you do? Very important to use food as medicine, because that's what we have at home, right? And if you will see on the right, I have put some numbers in red just to highlight that other ethnicities, the numbers, the biomarkers are much different than that what is accepted for South Asians. So a triglyceride of level of 150 is what is normal for other ethnicities, but that for South Asians is actually 140. Our goals for blood pressure are also much more stringent, and our cholesterol numbers given to us are also lesser than what the other populations are given to meet a goal. So here's a thali. And I think the biggest message that I want to give from this slide is that your basic rule should be that half your plate should be non-starchy vegetables. And also very important to include protein in every meal and try to limit your starchy foods or carbohydrates. Today, as your homework, when you sit down for dinner after this webinar, I want you to look at your thali and try to see how much carbohydrate you have. That in itself is an exercise that brings a lot of awareness. As South Asians, if you look at our thali, most of what we eat, unfortunately, is carbohydrates. And we just need to learn the skill to reduce some of that. Now look at this slide. Look at the rainbow of colors that nature has provided us. Many of the nutrients like vitamin A, C, and so many micronutrients are all in this group of foods. These are your best friends. And like I said before, they should hold the most place on your thali. So आपकी थाली में आधी जगह इन सब्जियों की होनी चाहिए. करेला, लौकी, string beans, eggplants, ये सारी जो सब्जियां हैं, they are giving you a lot of nutrients that will help your body get stronger. And just remember that I have heard that in this pandemic, it has fresh vegetables have not been a problem in India. But if that does become a problem at some point, any kind of vegetable, whether it is fresh, frozen, or canned, all vegetables count. So, सब्जियों को अपना दोस्त बनाइए. And on this slide, I highlighted 3 things that usually we Indians count as vegetables. हर चीज में मटर होता है, right? मटर का पराठा, आलू गोभी, आलू beans, आलू लौकी. We love our potatoes, right? Now the potatoes, corn, and the green peas, those 3 vegetables are not considered vegetables on your thali. They are counted in the grain and starchy food. So it is quite possible that a lot of you listeners may not really like me when you go home because I'm hoping that you will be thinking a little differently about your thalis. So I want you to start thinking about reducing some of these vegetables. And if you really do love your potato, then how about you swap that with your roti? So instead of your 3 rotis, you will be eating 2 rotis, but you will be enjoying your potato sabzi today, right? So those are some creative ideas you can use looking at, what we need to do as Indians when we create our thali. Enough protein on our thali is often a challenge for people of the South Asian origin. So primarily because most of us are vegetarian and we have to get creative. So you can add buddy, you can add Nutri-Nuggets, you can add soybeans. There's this new grain, quinoa, which is very popular these days. Quinoa has a complete protein in it, so you can definitely add quinoa. If you do eat meat and eggs, eggs are a very good source of selenium and zinc. And these 2 micronutrients help with increasing immunity. So continue to eat them. There is just one recommendation for people living with diabetes from all the research and studies that have been done with heart disease on people living with diabetes. There is a restriction for not more than 3 eggs in a week. But when you have those 3 eggs, you can still have the yolks. But if you have more than that in a week, you need to limit your yolks. But other than that, Indian cuisine is so diverse and so rich that there is a lot of creativity that you can bring to your thali. Sprouted beans, tofu, lentils, all these different things, edamame, lots of soybean is grown in India. I also wanted to mention nuts because often I have heard in my research projects here with the South Asian population that people, as soon as they get a high number for cholesterol, they stop eating nuts. Now, nuts are a good source of protein for people who are vegetarian. They also have the good kind of fat. So if you eat nuts in moderation, they do not increase your cholesterol. Cholesterol comes from animal sources. That does not mean that today I'm giving you permission as a dietitian that you can go home and have a katora of, uh, nuts, but a handful of nuts. 23 almonds make a serving, 17 cashews make a serving, 18 pistachios make a serving. You can include them in your diet every day. They come with very good quality of fat that is really good for us. So try and include those in your diet. In India, milk products are used very frequently. So although dairy foods do contain protein, they also contain the milk sugar lactose. So it is important to watch for portion size when you are including, paneer in your food. So if you are really interested in or very fond of protein of paneer, I suggest you make your own paneer. You can make it with low-fat milk and Chach, low-fat buttermilk, is a great addition. Not only is it a source of protein in our diets, it's also very rich in probiotics. And there's a lot of research going on the microbiome and how that is affecting the bacteria in our gut, that is affecting the basically the management of various chronic diseases. So it is great to include yogurt in your diet every day. And now looking at the slide, I'm sure you're wondering why I have half a banana at the very center of the slide. So if this were a community nutrition presentation, that would be my question to the listeners, but I'm going to answer for you today. Half of a banana is actually a serving size of banana, and banana is a great choice. One of the cheaper fruits, very high in potassium. But just remember that for a person living with diabetes, half of a banana is the serving size. Remember that you can eat berries in much larger quantities than you can the mangoes, the dates, or the grapes. And what are the berries that we get in India? Your falsa, your jamun, lots of strawberries are also available now. They're all good sources because they're very high in fiber. They have a lot of, and they're not very sweet. One word of caution, if you are on blood pressure medication, you must avoid grapefruit, which is called chakotra. Eat only 12 to 15 grapes at a time. So like I said, that 23 almonds make a serving, 15 grapes at a time make a serving for a person living with diabetes. And when consuming fruit, I always suggest that add some protein source with it, like cheese or milk or dahi. This will help your blood sugar not shoot up immediately after eating fruit. And another thing that you must remember is that fruits, like vegetables, are very good sources of both vitamins and minerals, but choose vegetables over fruits. And this is something that I've had a very hard time making my South Asian population here in America change to, because as South Asians, I think we really love our fruits a lot. Vegetables come with the same family of nutrients and antioxidants and no sugar. So my best choice, of course, is at the top. It's clean drinking water. I know in India, we live in a culture of many cups of chai and many cups of coffee. So remember that they also have sugar and milk, and they will affect your blood sugar numbers. Here's a list of some foods to limit. And I made the whole milk in red because I wanted to mention that if you are a vegetarian and your only source of saturated fat is coming from dairy, like I said, saturated fat comes from dairy, and then you may consume whole milk. Otherwise, it is suggested that you consume low-fat dairy, whether it is for your cheese, your paneer, the dahi that you use to make your lassi. Fat always tastes very good, right? Fat makes everything taste good. That is one of the functions of fat, and we love our ghee. Use ghee as a flavor, not putting the ghee first in the katori and then your dal. Let's do it the other way. So here are a list of some foods that you must limit. And then our condiments. We are all very fond of our condiments. What is the thali without our chutneys and our papad and our pickles? If you love your chutney, your sweet chutney, your tamarind chutney, your date chutney, try to include more fresh chutneys with cilantro, which is dhania ki patti, pudina, tomato. All these fresh chutneys, they come with much less sugar, right? If you like your fried papad, try to make a new habit of trying roasted papad. Pickles with a lot of salt or sugar or oils. You can make your own pickles with a base of vinegar that will have much less salt and sugar, because that's not what will be used as a preservative. So coping with challenges in this hard COVID-19 times, if I tell you today to stop eating your favorite foods, most of you, and perhaps all of you, will ignore that advice. So my suggestion is that continue to eat your favorite foods, but try to make your favorite dishes healthier. I highlighted this in red because sometimes, as being raised in India, we often, when we have parties or we invite family to eat together, we make a lot of unhealthy offerings, and oftentimes we end up eating a lot of that ourselves. So when you throw a party, think about what is something healthy that you can offer and that would encourage your friends and family to eat healthy with you. Try to grill and roast your vegetables, and if you eat meat, you can do that, and just use lemon, salt, and pepper, or just plain fresh salsa, which is just chopped tomatoes and onions to flavor most of your foods. I encourage you to try new ingredients. You are blessed to be in a country where there are so many different cuisines, and every cuisine has some healthy dishes and some not so healthy. So try new cooking methods and try new ingredients. And then we're going to move on to lifestyle modifications. And the important word here, the important word for the food part of the presentation was moderation, that you're allowed to eat everything in moderation. And that for exercise, the recommendation from the Heart Association is 30 minutes of exercise 5 times per week for every adult. And now the word at least is important here. So the 30 minutes comes with an at least. So you can do more than 30 minutes if you would like, right? And you should include different kinds of exercises, aerobic, resistance, flexibility, and there is no right time other than what works for you. So often people ask me like, do I have to be empty stomach? Do I need to do it first thing in the morning? What is the time that works? Time is what works for you. When you can bring in that 30 minutes of exercise, that's when you can actually do your exercise. And unfortunately, time is not an excuse these days. In COVID-19 times, time is not a bahana, right? We are all at home and we can find the 30 minutes. There's a lot of cooking going on all over the world and everybody's stuck at home. So with the cooking comes eating. So let us also try to change it and add some exercise to our day. I have some examples here for, there are different resources on the internet where you can actually walk inside your home. So there are videos where you can walk in place. There's a lot of fitness classes that are now available online on Zoom. And most important also is to get the support of your family and your friends. So try to FaceTime or Zoom call your family. If you have a diabetes support group that you can join, you must join that. You know, the presenter before me talked about support for people who are living in isolation. That is more of a problem in the Western world where there is a different kind of, there's not as much availability of support within the families. But my understanding is that things have changed in India as well. And so if you have not had a support group in your community and you are a person living with diabetes, I suggest you can start your own diabetes support group. That strength in people is something we will all need because diabetes is a disease of very high burden. And you really need to get out of the stigma of not talking about it, but instead sharing and asking for help from everyone around you so that you can take care of yourself. So I'm sure you all have heard all of this regarding staying safe, not touching your face or nose or eyes. One thing that I really wanted to talk today was the coughing or sneezing in your elbow. This in America is that one big public health message that we are sharing with our communities. We want you to sneeze or cough into your sleeve in your elbow. Those of you who can see me on the screen, I think I have a very small thumbnail there, but you have to basically push your mouth into your sleeve so that all that is coming out of your mouth is actually captured in your sleeve and it does not leave your sleeve, get on the floor or get in the room around you. And that is the one best way to stop the spread of coronavirus. And I'm sure it is written last, but it is one of the important messages here is stay home as much as you can and monitor your blood glucose level. There is a lot of stress in the environment. My advice to you would be to take breaks from social media. Cut down on your time on WhatsApp and Facebook, Twitter, the news. Most of the time it's more of sicknesses and death. Dr. Anuragni shared many apps of using positive technology. So I think those are really useful and you must utilize them at this time. Exercising, like I said, is very important for everybody, whether you're living with diabetes or not. No excuse for not to exercise. Eat well. Food is medicine, and it has always been. Get enough sleep. There's sleep hygiene is very, very important. Try to have a routine. Try to sleep and wake up at the same time, and allow your body to restore itself when the sun is down. I see a lot of, especially the younger population, and I hope some of the students are listening, that they're in this habit of staying up sometimes all night until 3 a.m., either on the phones or whatever they're doing. That is really messing up your body and is going to introduce chronic conditions for you later in life. So you're young today, you can deal with it, but stop doing it. Get into a good sleep hygiene pattern. Deep breathing and meditation are both very helpful, and I do not need to preach to the choir. These are all techniques that are very prevalent in India, and I'm sure all of you know that. I do take a lot of time to teach people here deep breathing and meditation, and it's very helpful. A lot of us, like the survey that Dr. Anuragini did, a lot of you said that you were feeling depressed and anxious. And often when we are depressed and anxious, we use alcohol as a remedy for that. That is the absolute wrong thing to do, because that only aggravates your situation. It only gives you a very small high. So if you can, just use alcohol in moderation. Engage in activities or hobbies that you enjoy, that bring you joy, that bring you happiness. Connect with others, people that you love or that love you back. Those are the people that you need to surround yourself with. So some key takeaways from today's presentation. People with unmanaged diabetes have greater chance of getting worse health outcomes from the coronavirus. Use your time at home to improve your eating patterns, your exercise habits, and your chronic disease management. Remember that when you have diabetes, you could end up with many other conditions, because we did talk about the complications that come with diabetes. Do not leave your home unless it is necessary, and stay safe and be well. I have included some more resources that you can go to for preparation strategies for coronavirus. There's also a comprehensive guide for COVID-19 and diabetes. And people who have diabetes, because of the news, we have found are very worried. So if you want to use any of these are all on the internet, and you can go and read them and utilize some of the information that has been shared there. I just wanted to put a plug in. If as a dietitian, I do tweet, and my Twitter handle is at the bottom of the screen. It's at RDNSMather. So RDNSMather. And if you're interested in chronic disease and the research that we're doing here, I do a lot of work with South Asians, and you can follow me on Twitter, and you can get some of what I shared today on that Twitter feed. So thank you very much for listening. And Dr. Kapoor, I'm ready for questions if there are any.
Yeah, I know there are lots of them. In fact, there are lots of them. It was a very informative session, and especially considering how in India we are actually seeing an explosion of diabetes. This was not there some 3 decades back. So I remember my mother was probably the first generation where we were actually seeing a lot of people getting this issue. I will not call it a disease, it's a condition. So the first question that came is from Bangalore, and Sandeep has asked this question: is it possible to reverse diabetes to a pre-diabetic condition? My next question will be related to this. So should I ask you both the questions together? Because in India, we use a lot of alternative food habits, like having methi and the other things as an alternative to medicine in the initial stages. So, do you think all that helps in going back to a pre-diabetic condition?
So this is $1 million question, and we find it very common for people of South Asian descent. We like to believe more in our methi seeds and avla and karela, and we will do everything in our power for a year or 2 years before we actually get on metformin. Um, once your A1C number has switched from 5.6 to 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, there is very little likelihood that you can push it back. But as long as you are in that pre-diabetes stage, yes, you can put your diabetes in reset. We don't call it reverse. We just call it that the disease has gone in remission, right? So you basically, if you are able to push your A1C number back to the pre-diabetes number and then further back to the normal number of being less than 5.4, then you are pushing diabetes. And there is, I have done some research with the United States CDC, and they have a curriculum called National Diabetes Prevention Program. And I really would love to see that curriculum be embraced in a country like India, because you're, like you said, Dr. Kapoor, you're exploding with pre-diabetes and diabetes. And so that curriculum actually is a year-long curriculum, and that's what I'm trained to teach as a lifestyle coach. And what we are doing is that we're recruiting people who have pre-diabetes and helping them with the nutrition, lifestyle, stress management in order to push their pre-diabetes condition back to either being normal or not going ahead and becoming a full-blown diabetic. So I hope I answered the question for
Yes,
Sandeep
yes.
from Bangalore.
Just one little thing. Once you are in this pre-diabetic condition, do you need to maintain all the lifestyle changes that a diabetic needs to make, or we can go back to having sugar in moderation and the rest of it?
So in the new way that diabetes is treated with food, you are allowed all the foods. So you can have a little bit of sugar. 1 spoon of sugar is 5 grams of carb. Okay. So if you are counting your carbs, you are allowed that 1 spoon of sugar. But if you are in the pre-diabetes state and you need aggressive measures to go back and put your disease in remission. So do not stop exercising, do not stop eating healthy. You can cheat. We are all human beings. We do cheat sometimes, you know. इंडिया में थोड़ा शादी अटेंड करने का ज्यादा माहौल रहता है, तो हर शादी में दावत होती है. But you can still control. You can eat something healthy and then go to the shadi, right? So you cannot basically leave that stringent place that you have been able to come. But as long as you continue to be careful, you can keep full-blown diabetes away for several years. The study that they did, the NDPP study that they did here, people were able to push diabetes for 7 to 8 years by following the rules or the habits that they made from this curriculum. So very important to do that.
Yes, I think that explains it. The other question, and this I think is something that is once again very relevant as far as diabetes management is concerned, is that people often take sugar-free or equal or other such things in place of sugar. What is the quantity that people should be consuming? Because having it with tea every time, or adding it to adding it to their sweet dishes, or whatever desserts they are having, is there a limit to the daily quantity that they can consume, or is it okay to have it?
So there is a lot of research. All these artificial sweeteners is the family that Splenda, Equal, and all those others that
Yes, yes,
you
yes,
see,
yes,
the
yes.
the pink packets and the yellow packets that you see everywhere. Um, the research that is evolving now with with these artificial sweeteners is not really positive. So as a dietitian and working with patients with diabetes, I often tell my patients to, if they have 1 cup of tea, I do allow them to have that 1 cup of tea with a spoon of sugar. That's not a problem. What is happening is there are two wrong things that are happening with these sweeteners. One, that it is giving a very wrong signal to your brain because these are chemicals and not sweet. So those people who have been seen on diet foods like diet soda or using a lot of these sweeteners, they tend to crave sugar more. So they tend to eat a lot, or they continue to crave the sugar because although in their head they are eating this sweetener, but it is not satisfying their hunger. So these people often end up being obese or gaining weight. And the second thing that is happening, which is not good, is the microbiota that I talked about. Your gut bacteria do not like these artificial sweeteners. So what they do is they go in and destroy some of those good bacteria that you need for dealing with a lot of these normal, immunity issues in your body. That's what makes your body strong. So you're making yourself weaker by putting more chemical in your body. So limit your sugar, but go for the right, for the real
The
thing.
natural sugar, yeah, the natural sugar. This
Yep.
should be avoided because the way it is advertised in us in the media, it is supposed to be a healthier option. But then actually the fact is, the truth is that it is not healthy because people consume a lot of it. Almost every time they have tea, and as you said, we love our tea. So every time they have the tea, pop in a couple of them, then pop a spoonful of it in any dessert that you are having. I think it's to be avoided. This is something that we all need to be very cautious of.
Actually, there's so much research on tea that we have done here, and we encourage people to have tea because it has these such rich antioxidants that are so good for us. But in India, we cook the tea so much, destroy some of that, and then we add milk and sugar. So um, try try your tea without sugar and milk. It really does taste good. It's just a matter of habit. It's something that you can do for yourself, and tea in itself is a good drink to have.
I think that explains. This is wonderful. You've been very patient and you've answered all the questions that have come up, and a lot of doubts that have been cleared here. I'm sure that people are going to benefit, especially because we need to be, as you rightly pointed out, we need to be very careful in these days where almost everybody is homebound, and food is probably the one good thing that is happening around us, which is which is probably something that we should be very careful about now. Uh,
And
that
food is
brings
always
us,
around us in India.
yeah, yes.
And it's
So
the
next
same with
week,
Indians in America. You go and they have at least 2 tablespoons of foods when we go to a party. I walk in as a very guilty dietitian, and people will come and tell me, I'm not eating that, or I'm like, no, please enjoy whatever you need to do. But it is a
the
culture
next
change. We
week,
need to learn.
it's probably we need to learn. Actually, what probably has changed is that we have shifted from coarse grains like chana, bajra, and all. We have shifted to wheat, and our dependence on wheat and rice has grown a lot, because of which probably this diabetes has come up in this big way. That's
And a lot
probably.
of, I think, what is available in the Indian markets, I'm very appalled that there is so many campaigns that we do here to change the food environment in America, because we deal with obesity and the chain of food that is available. But so much of that bad food is now in India. All the McDonald's, all the
Exactly.
chips and everything, and people don't understand. Whereas we here are now we are making bajra rotis, and we are trying to introduce the old grains back, because
Yes.
there was a lot do it. Yep.
So that's probably what we need to go back to. That's probably what we need to.
So in 10 years, I hope sooner, India will go back to that same healthy India.
Let's hope. Let's hope and pray for that. And with that, we come to the end of the second session of the second day. And this was a wonderful session, very interactive. People had lots of comments to make and the questions that were posted. And I'm sure most of the doubts in the minds of our audience today has been cleared. And with this, I once again thank you, ma'am, for being here and answering all these questions and giving your wonderful discourse here, which can help us manage these changes that we need to cope up with in the lockdown and the pandemic. Thank you once again for finding the time to address
Thank you.
the conference.
Thank you again.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
With this, we come to the last technical session, and it was so heartening to see such qualified ladies talking about things from all parts of the world and Indian ladies. So now, for a change, our next speaker is a gentleman. He's a young man and a man with great prospects, a man who has done some wonderful research. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Vishweshnath. He's a medical imaging scientist. He's a senior scientist specializing in medical imaging, currently resides at Vanderbilt University, Tennessee, USA. His special area of interest is artificial intelligence. And that is what he's here to talk about today. He did his PhD from Vanderbilt University with a focus towards medical imaging, especially targeting modalities of diffusion, weighted magnetic resonance imaging, and neuroimaging. We hear a lot of these terms when we go to the doctor, and it's sometimes it frightens us to see all these. But then I hope that today we come out of our session with a lot of positive information about artificial intelligence. He has several projects to his credit, and he is currently with the Vanderbilt University, as I pointed out, the Vanderbilt University. Did his bachelor's from the Manipal Institute of Technology. Over to you, sir, for your discourse on artificial intelligence. Dr. Vishweshnath, over to you.
Thank you for such a kind introduction. That was indeed very nice to hear. I'm going to try and share my screen. And also, am I loud and audible to everybody? I know I'm visible,
yes,
but
very clear, very clear, very clear.
Very clear. Okay, yeah. Great. Well, fantastic. It's great to have you all to just, listen to me talk. I'd like to present a perspective of what the world has been up to with artificial intelligence, with this multi-headed Hydra virus that nobody knows much about, yet people talk about it. So, okay. So here's the problem. This is how the virus looks like. If you try and take an image using an electron microscope, this is how the coronavirus actually looks like. If you compare it with the top, that's actually just a kind of an animation. Hang on one second. I'm just going to try and get out of full screen. Or is there no way? There's no way. Forget it. All right. And what it does is, if it affects the human, then it mainly affects the lungs. And in the blue background is a CT imaging modality. And it causes severe symptoms of cold and flu-like typical symptoms. Also, it causes a lot of atypical symptoms where diarrhea has been reported, or extreme breathlessness has been reported, and things like that. So, an interesting thing about this virus is that it takes about 1 to 2 weeks for this virus to actually start showing symptoms. Now, while just saying that, it doesn't sound that bad, but actually it's the worst thing ever that could happen because it's highly contagious. And because it's so highly contagious, it just infiltrates into a lot of places because of that. And so I've used the word clandestine over there. This is also a zoonotic virus. It did not come from us. We are not the ones who formed it. We didn't originate it. The best hypothesis we have is that it transmitted from the animals. I'm not pointing out to any specific animal. They are still hypotheses, and the origins of the virus are still pretty much unknown, scientifically, of course. And this virus has been the cause of trouble and death for many. It has affected over 6.7 million people. Over 390,000 people have died. We have a population, half the population, which is still recovering, but still the population that got affected is equivalent to many countries. If you were not familiar, then I hope it helped. But then this is what I really want to talk about. What is artificial intelligence? What can it do for us? So if you take a look at the left-hand side, I've got handwritten digits written over here. And especially like if you take a look at the red box, then you've got a 5, then there's a 0, there's a 4, and a 1. And if I said that, as a human, can you identify these digits, then you'll very easily say that, because being able to identify them is a cognitive ability of the human brain. However, when I say that I can get that done from a machine, then the machine replicating such an action is abstractly defined as AI. So that's an abstract and a simple way to think about AI, where tasks that are equivalent to be performed by humans can be done by machines. How is this possible? Like, if this is possible, then why are we not doing even more crazy things, right? So here's a simple example. If I take lots of data, which is in this case just lots and lots of handwriting styles, many people have written it, and then there are only so many outcomes in the numbers, right? If there are any more numbers beyond 0 to 9, please let me know. I'd be really happy to know about them. And if I gave all of this tons of experience to this machine, then it will eventually learn. And here is an inside inner working, which actually shows the millions and billions of computations that go inside the machine, where the input is the handwritten image that is going in. And then at the output, you have a prediction, which is marked here. So like for 1, it makes the prediction 1, but that is a machine doing the task. We don't have to do anything. That was relatively simple for a machine. Yes, things have progressed. And if I were to give a different kind of experience, what scientists are up to with computer vision are that you can actually do face translation. So if you look at this young woman, you can actually translate her to looking a bit old, if not too much, but the uncanny resemblance that they're the same set of facial features is still there. Here's another person. If you forgot to shave, and then you were like, oh, maybe I could just make myself look better in this picture, then maybe remove your beard. If you forgot to smile when a picture was being clicked, and then here's one where you're just not happy with your hair. I'm going to dye my hair to blonde, but you don't need to do it actually, just the picture. So here's a decent bit of examples of AI, but the bigger question is where is the medical AI, and why are we listening to all of this? So let me get there, which is more important. So in order to get there, I'll just give a brief outline of what the objective and the organization of this talk is. So ever since 4th grade, I think we've always heard it enough. Prevention is better than cure. Prevention is better than cure. And so that is how I structured my talk. First, we're going to talk about that the COVID-19 pandemic, and where can AI assist in just assessing the risk or forecast or detect where the pandemic is. So there is AI for social distancing, there's AI for pandemic detection, it's for specific places inside buildings. And then the more dark question, what do we do if we got affected? Yes, it's not a great feeling to hear that, but we need to be prepared either ways. So let's get into like how it looks like for social distancing. So here is a very neat example. This has been developed by Andrew Ng. He's one of the pioneering scientists of artificial intelligence. And what you can see on the left-hand side is that there are a lot of AI tasks being performed. First of all humans are detected with a bounding box. So you can correlate a box as just being a human. And then the green boxes are suggesting that this human is following the rules of social distancing. And if the boxes are red, then those two sets of humans are not following social distances. And you can even see a bar in between them. So there's quite a bit that has gone into there. First of all, there's object detection. Then there is depth estimation, because you want to know what is the distance even between the two people. And so just imagine that, this is all being estimated from a two-dimensional image, and that's all there is to it. The way I see this useful is that CCTV cameras can actually be installed at public places. A lot of countries already do have them. And we can have such infrastructure in place where if, lots of people are just accumulating where they don't want to follow social distancing, then it's better to know that, it's not being followed. Why try and visit such a place? Now, it's not typical for social distancing to be not followed. And the bigger question also is, how do we quantify the risk of spread? So it is kind of imminent, or it's like, it's just on the verge of happening that, people will travel at some point. You can't stop it. And so just like you want to know, what is the weather going to be? Is it going to be stormy? Is it going to be day? Is it going to be bright and sunny? Is it windy? Is it going to snow? Same ways, you want to know what are your chances or the risk. And so even though you can't do much about it because it's the weather or the risk of the virus, but you can go in prepared at least, right? You can take extra measures to be precautious, or even choose to just not visit at all. So that leads me to answering the question of how we're going to quantify this spread. Thank you, that helped. So for quantifying the spread, there is a very famous model that has been in use since the 1927. And that is just a simple metric of, if this one person gets infected, what are the chances of the secondary people getting infected from this person? So this is specific metric, it's called R0, and it's based on ordinary differential equations. It can be used for other AI models as well, or you can think of that itself as just one model. R0 has been estimated for multiple diseases. You have mumps, you have measles. For example, R0 for measles is 18, which means if somebody gets measles, the chances are that that person, if he's roaming around, he or she is roaming around freely, he's going to hand out that disease to at least 18 other people. The R naught was also estimated for the 1918 flu outbreak, which was 1.4 to 2.8. For H1N1, it was 1.4 to 1.6. COVID-19, which is a relatively dangerous virus as well, has a median of 5.7, or roughly, as I'd like to say, it's 6 people. And anytime R naught goes beyond 1 is when the situation is considered pandemic. And so interesting questions arise as to, where should this be estimated? Is this countrywide? Is this statewide? Is this building specific? Is this a kind of a region? So what are we going to look at? So for example, I have here the state of Pennsylvania, and there is actually live research going in for estimation of R naught. And just like the weather, you want to know what it is dynamically, because I want to know the answer, what the situation was 10 minutes ago if I'm headed there. That's the way you want it to be. And so we're going to typically take a look at the county of Philadelphia and how this metric looks like. And then if there's more time left in the end, I will show the link of how this web app functions, because we also have ideas of, how this could be done for India and how, this could be applied to different cities or different states. So take a look here. This is R naught estimation in a temporal fashion. So the days are passing, and then you are looking at the R naught. And so this is typically the example of how the effect of social distancing affected this metric. So I'm exactly answering a question what I asked before. How are we going to quantify the question of quantifying the spread? So because social distancing was started roughly in March, the R naught was pretty high initially. It was about 10 to 12. And then as the days progress in the month of March, it has gone down gradually. Now it is pretty close to 1, but it's not an end yet to this pandemic. Such systems can be put in place for future outbreaks for unprecedented diseases, because we have no idea of what we're going to be hit with next. And then here's the third perspective. You can't also stop going to work completely. You need to be inside a building. So the University of Pittsburgh, they came up with a very neat app, and it's got everything in it. It can find routes for you. It can give you a health score, how much you traveled. And then it gives you interesting things like the map of the building. So essentially, if you take a look at the middle image, then it will mark some rooms as red. Don't try and visit the room because there was some miscellaneous activity there, or it's not safe. It will plan routes for you that this is the safest route to take, or the route where you will encounter the least amount of people, first of all, to reduce your own risk to these diseases, and also simultaneously help out somebody else. Now, one of the most interesting things about this app is that this data is encrypted on your phone, and it should not be, it is not going to be transmitted or shared with anyone because it relies on your GPS location anonymously. This app is actually out of the research phase, and it has already been implemented. If you think that such an idea would be helpful to your campus or your community, please reach out. I will share my contact details at the end, and we can have a discussion of what can be done. So here are some challenges and benefits associated with just the prevention AI, because now while it is useful, and a more stronger question to think about is, do they infringe our privacy? Do we need to be worried about that? You always get creeped out if you know that you're being stalked upon by video. It's not a great feeling. It kind of feels like your freedom is being obliterated. Also, does this imply, do our laws need to be changed that we are accustomed to today? Or is there like a really, really better way? Because you know what? I don't have the answer to that question. All we're trying to do is answer questions. I'm trying to give you perspectives on AI. And then the objective also of this talk is to get you guys to think. So moving forward from that, I'm going to take you to the second part of my talk, where we're going to tackle the darker question, where what do we do if one does get affected with COVID-19? So it has two parts to it. First is AI for clinical assistance, and then the second one is like federated learning-based AI, which of course I'll explain. In order to get there, I need to outline a need. Why do we even need these medical imaging modalities? Everybody hears that the COVID test kit costs a maximum amount of rupees 4,500. But it's also common to know that it's not just India. There are many other countries that are actually running shortage of these test kits. Many people have been turned away. Often it happens, you try to reach out to a doctor and the doctor is like, I'm sorry, your symptoms are not severe enough yet that, we try and test you for it. It's best you stay home and remedy. However, the best thing that we can do is test and test and test. And I'm quoting Bill Gates again on that. So as replacement alternatives, there are two promising imaging modalities. One is computed tomography, which is CT scans, and then there is chest X-ray radiographs. And I'm sure you guys have heard both of them. But I'll just show what COVID looks like, and then we'll get into the AI stuff with that. So here's actually a subject, and you're looking from the top view. It's actually called the actual view as well. So imagine that somebody is staring from the top of your head, and they're actually looking at inside your lungs. So that's what you're looking at right now. So in this particular case, this is a 75-year-old female. On day 3, this is what was seen. So this glass opaque kind of contrast change in the CT image is what is being termed as the COVID virus. And then on day 6, we see that it worsened. And then day 9, there's hardly any of it left. It improved. And I hope that she lived, which is great. And then here's a 30-year-old male. On day 5, day 10, it worsened a lot, and it still got worse. So that's where also like there's no guaranteed recovery, which is why I said earlier in the beginning that there are atypical symptoms associated with this virus, and they're also visible with these imaging modalities. So this was how it looks like with the CT. And then the other one is the chest X-ray based detection. So if you just look at the top row, then you've got the normal radiographs. In the middle, you've got pneumonia. And then at the rightmost, you've got the COVID-19. Now, of course, X-rays are very, very much cheaper than CT scans, which is good for the society because it's easier to afford. The AI models, however, can tackle using both modalities. And what you can see is that a clinical AI model is actually showing that in normal, it does not detect anything. In pneumonia, it catches the specific parts, and it catches the COVID-19 consistently throughout. So the clinical AI model is actually functioning based on just lots of data. I'm going to refer to the earlier word that I used, which I called experience. Any AI model is all about experience. It just needs to see again and again, and again, just lots of samples that have been labeled with the specific disease. For example, there's cardiomegaly, there's pneumonia, there's COVID-19, there could be a tumor. And so thousands of chest X-rays are needed to train such models. Now, the predictive outcome can be COVID-19, a fusion tumor. There are too many to list, or normal, of course. But the catch is that this is not, first of all, it's not trying to remove the doctor out of the equation. It is just trying to offer assistance. We are very, very much far away from even, considering no human intervention. Now, what the benefit that this will provide you is that rather than the doctor being at the hospital and providing medical assistance, the doctor can also just sit at the home and just work from home like the rest of us, because ever since all of this began, it's been like a consistent war zone from them for them. And it's not safe anymore. They are highly pressured people, and we need to protect them in the best way that we can. There are also certain challenges associated with medical imaging and trying to train AI models. First one is that there are lots of data sets. Even though there are 100,000 samples, they are often not considered enough. The second point that is listed here is the reliability that has been diagnosed by the radiologist. For example, let's say there's a patient X, and patient X comes in, and radiologist 1 says that this person has COVID-19. However, the second radiologist says, no, I disagree. I think it is pneumonia. So it is very much possible that there is a difference of opinion there, and that causes variance because that leads to an inconsistent kind of experience. So it's a challenge. And then the last one is that there's lack of accessibility to multi-site data collectively, as independent entities such as different hospitals like Stanford, Massachusetts General, or Vanderbilt, everybody has their own data set. I know that doesn't make sense, but let me show you why that matters. I'll give it to you in a much broader context. If you look here, these are all publications coming from all the different countries. So UK have got their own COVID data set. Japan have their own. Canada has multiple. US has their own. And then Italy also has their own data set. I know the problem is not clearly evident yet, but the way I see it, I think this is a global problem. It's not about a country. It's not about a hospital. It's not about just one entity. So if I mark them all over here, now all of this data is protected because there are lots of things that go into handling the medical imaging data. You have to protect the person's privacy. There are laws in place among countries that such data cannot be shared. So the bigger question arises, how are we going to put it all together? Because it's a global problem and we are tackling a global pandemic and a challenge. Well, one of the most interesting technologies that have come out, it's called federated learning. So it's not in place yet, but it's a perspective and a vision into the future. And so I'll give you a brief overview and understanding of federated learning. So in federated learning, the idea is if you have a global model sitting at the top, and just for reference, just try and imagine, like I've listed here, you've got all of these small sites listed as the different countries. Then every country has its own local AI model where they can access the data easily. However, because now we're talking in the global context, you should only require the experience, but not the access to the data samples because it is protected, it is private. And so federated learning is essentially a collaborative model that just takes in the experience from the different sites. It's not trying to access or break any kind of laws. It doesn't infringe the privacy. And at the same time, let me also give you some fun facts. You might not have heard this before. If you think about your Google keyboard on your phone, it functions in 30 to 40 different languages. It makes valid predictions of what you're going to type next. The reason why it can do that, because it anonymously grabs your data from the phones from all of these countries, and then it has global models like federated learning in place to make these predictions of what you see on your phone as text. The second example is YouTube captions generation, where you can see that the captions are automatically generated no matter what language you throw at it. Yes, it's not perfect. It's quite often it's wrong, but it's getting there. But these are interesting times. And so we also need such models to tackle global pandemics like this, especially in the medical imaging world. With that, I would like to give some concluding lines. Briefly summarizing, we saw clinical use cases where radiologists can directly be assisted with a pre-assessment. We also saw how it can help us reduce risk and make forecasts, just like checking the weather. And then here are some interesting things to think about. AI can also tackle much harder problems. For example, example one is, what is the severity of your COVID? Let's say this person X got COVID, and now somebody gets a severe one, somebody is case is not so severe. And so rather than doctor just turning down, we can have AI systems in place for the future where the person can just know it's not that severe, or it's highly severe, you need to be hospitalized, reducing human contact, and at the same time helping out the person. Second one is that it can detect regions of interest and actually mark out the places in the organ where it happened. And then last one is predict the trajectory. You know what? Everybody likes to know about their own future. I guess the first question that I would ask is, what are the chances of COVID for me getting better, or is it going to get worse? Because the new thing has always been, let's be prepared. Nobody likes surprises anymore. I think that time is way past. And with that, I would like to thank you all. I have nothing but gratitude for listening to me. There's my email. It's listed right there. If you think that anything was worthwhile or we're talking about, please shoot me an email if you want to discuss ideas. And if you feel that your question was unanswered after this, do shoot them to me at my email and I will reply you right back. I look forward to the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Vishweshnath. It was an excellent session, very comprehensive, filled with insight into how artificial intelligence can help us in healthcare and administration as well. I hope it provides leads in not too distant a future for our country. Especially another hope that such competence that people like you have, I hope it comes in handy for our country as well, sometime not too distant future.
I hope so too.
Thank you so much once again for an excellent session. I can see that the chat box has a very positive response. It is a very complex idea. You have made it very lucid, very simple. Everybody can understand what you're talking about here, although it's a state of art. Actually, it is actually state of art. The first question, therefore, that has come up is something that we are actually struggling with and is very relevant is how can artificial intelligence help prepare vaccine? Is it possible to use? Because we are struggling with a vaccine. That is probably the first thing that we need to be focusing on. So, is it possible for artificial intelligence to prepare a vaccine, especially considering the fact that people are saying that the virus is mutating and it's changing its properties? So, in these conditions where the virus is mutating so fast, can a comprehensive vaccine be made for?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, I'd say it's a great question, and I often wonder about it. Also, I'm not towards the biology side of things where these vaccines are actually developed, but I'll share the best insights that I've read upon. But however, take the answer with a pinch of salt. So AI models can be helpful because in identifying virus strains, because there are too many. So think of it in this way: from what I read and understood, there are like too many different kinds of virus strains out there for the COVID-19, and it keeps mutating. However, there is still the possibility of some kind of underlying pattern there, which will make it evident that which ones affect the humans more. And AI models can specifically be built to detect those specific ones. And I know that there are papers that are being written about them right now. So in short, the answer is yes, it is helping out, but the process is slow. It takes an incredible amount of time to tweak and train these AI models and debugging, because before any kind of answer is given or before even any paper is written, at least like people like me, we just end up going through our own work like 10 times, because I don't want to give anything out that I'm not confident with. So answer is yes. And here's the reason why it was slow.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that does make things clear. The second question that I see being posted here is: can this artificial intelligence evaluation stay in sync with live clinical analysis? Now, this is
Yes.
if
No, but please finish the questions.
no,
But
no,
the
I
answer
think
is
that's
yes.
all. That's all. Yes, it
That,
can.
that
It
is the
can.
question.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes, that is the question.
it can very much be in place. In fact, this is in the research phase right now at Vanderbilt, but this is already happening, that there's a live clinical system in place. Now, you have two different pieces, when somebody comes in for a scan, right? For a clinical evaluation. First, there's the person involved who's going to acquire the image or the X-ray or the CT. And then there's the other person who is involved in sitting inside the clinic or the hospital who needs to look at it. But now we have, like, you can imagine a big computer is in place where, the scan is automatically just recorded digitally as well. A prediction is made. But however, a person is needed to acquire the image, which is another aspect that needs to be, automated. But the second aspect is actually that some doctors are functioning remotely. This kind of functionality is possible. And it's very much in place over here.
Thank you. I think that's a very that's a very clear answer to the question. Uh, so that brings us to the end of this session, the question answer session and the session. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Vishweshnath, for being with us here today and addressing us in this international conference. I'm sure that people have gained a lot of new things to think about, to explore, and I hope all this comes in very useful for our country in the coming years. My best wishes to you for your future. And now we come to the last part of this international conference. And as we approach the end, think uh, I would now request, first of all, I would now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to uh, to address the conference, to address the meeting, and uh, give her concluding remarks before we move any further. It was all her effort, it was all her vision, and I think it has been a wonderful, wonderful way to explore all these areas. So, ma'am, please, we would love to hear your concluding remarks. Dr. Sangeeta Srivastava, Honorable Vice Chancellor.
Thank you, Jaya, for giving me this opportunity of bringing this conference to an end, this webinar to an end. And since yesterday, we are all sitting glued to our chairs and listening to the wonderful talks about COVID-19 and how they correlate to health and how they correlate to immunity, and how difficult it is for a person with chronic conditions like diabetes, as Shelja told us. And then also the mental health. We are such complex beings. And at the end of it, Vishwesh walked away with the cake, and he was talking about artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence can actually protect us, and how we can distance ourselves from the other person through an app was a piece of new information coming our way. And certainly India will also benefit by the usage of artificial intelligence. So all these lectures were very illuminating for all of us. And because the pandemic was global in nature, it is global in nature. So the idea occurred in my mind that let us share our experiences globally as to how we can cope with it, how people are coping up with the pandemic in France, how they are coping up in America, and how they are coping up in Singapore. And we did get an insight into so many things. And also, Dr. Vatsala, in very simple words, explained to us how we must use the mask and how people have just run away the N95 mask, and we are suffering a depletion of the N95 mask. The doctors are at risk, and it was very interesting to see that how doctors can work remotely through the usage of artificial intelligence. So it has been beneficial to the masses, and we have been able to disseminate a lot of information through the ends of the university. And this webinar was being live streamed on YouTube, and we are recording the webinar, and it is going to be placed on our university page. So it is going to be reviewed many times, and not one, not two, but lakhs of our students. The university has 4.5 lakh students. And I think all the students, the entire university, teachers, and everybody, the entire fraternity is going to benefit from the wonderful lectures that our speakers have been giving since yesterday. Professor K. Kumar, I thank you. Professor Manmohan Krishnan, I thank you so much for the political and economic aspect of COVID-19 era. Professor Vatsala Mishra, Medical College, Allahabad, Dr. Shailja Mathur, Dr. Vishweshnath, Dr. Anuragini, and Dr. Shalini Chandra. It was an amazing experience. And I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. And to Jaya summed it all up beautifully. I have to thank our hostess, Jaya, to be constantly being present there. And she has just wrapped it up in beautiful questions and has satisfied the curiosity of our audience. And it has been amazing. And of course, there have been some people who have been working from behind the scene, and that is Shivani, and that is Avinash, and Dr. Shivani and Dr. Avinash. And they have also done a wonderful job at organizing this workshop so beautifully. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And have a nice day, all of you. And of course, it is our evening and your morning and Anuragini's afternoon. So that's how we are all global. Thank you very much.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, exactly. To think that from different parts of the world, people are connected to different parts of the country, people are connected here at this point in time. It's amazing what technology can do. And it's been a wonderful 2 days of information, of questions, of knowledge. And it's been my pleasure to be hosting this kind of a seminar where we had such speakers. The audience has been a very curious audience. They have been very interactive. They have been very responsive. In fact, there's still a question pending right before me for Dr. Vishweshnath. It says, is India using a CT scan and X-ray technique to detect COVID, and which of the two is a better technique? So,
yes, good question.
If he can take this question, and then we'll quickly wrap it up.
Good question.
Yeah.
Dr. Vishweshnath.
अनुराग जी, आपको उनको अनम्यूट करना पड़ेगा, वो
Please unmute.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for unmuting. So there are the primary answer, like I already did mention it once, but yes, of course, it's always great to reinforce it. X-ray is always cheaper. It's always cheaper. It's much easier to acquire that data. It's much easier to handle it. It's much easier to pre-process it. Just think of it in the simple term, because the computed tomography or the CT scan is going to be an entire 3D volume, but the chest X-ray is just a 2D image. And so you want to go with the cheapest way option, which can still be reliable. So you start somewhere. If it's still not working out, then you go to more advanced modalities. Like now, there's already even research happening, for example, with MRI. Now somebody's trying to correlate what is the effect on the human brain if a person gets affected by COVID. And again, an interesting question. We don't know how this virus is interacting with our bodies. The lungs are a start. We'll see where it gets to. So
no, we wanted to ask you whether India is using the latest technology so far. How well are you informed about India's medical imaging setup?
That's a really good question. I missed on the India part, and so I answered the question without that. So sorry about that. Regarding India, I have not seen a lot of it so far, like in the news of this being done, like anything AI related so far. I think data is still probably being collected or curated somewhere, but just that I haven't seen it. So it's something.
Is the 80 CT scan that you were talking about, is it available in India? Do you have any information regarding that?
CT scans are available in India, of course. All imaging modalities are available.
Yeah, the one that uses artificial intelligence, the one that the third one that you showed the image of, where the color image is being displayed, specifically regarding COVID-19.
Well, so here's the thing. The artificial intelligence model becomes available with installation of new hardware. So it's not just the machine acquisition, but it takes in an entire pipeline of, okay, here's another big computer that is going to get plugged into the CT machine, and then the data gets into that automatically. So those kind of systems and machines, they are like, they're being researched upon. I see some papers that do come out of IIT, but they're rare. They're like extremely rare.
So we are still waiting for that to happen in India. Let's hope.
Oh yes.
Soon. Thank you so much for your patience and for answering the questions once again. Now we come to the last part, and now for this I invite Dr. Avinash Kumar to give the vote of thanks. Dr. Avinash Kumar.
धन्यवाद डॉक्टर जया मैडम। धन्यवाद ज्ञापन की श्रृंखला में इस 2 दिवसीय अंतर्राष्ट्रीय वेबिनार के सफल समापन के अवसर पर सर्वप्रथम मैं हृदय से कृतज्ञता ज्ञापित करना चाहता हूं इस कार्यक्रम की मुख्य अतिथि माननीय कुलाधिपति और राज्यपाल उत्तर प्रदेश श्रीमती आनंदीबेन जी पटेल का। अपने अति व्यस्ततम कार्यक्रम में से अमूल्य क्षण निकाल करके आप हमारे बीच में रहीं। आपका मार्गदर्शन समस्त विश्वविद्यालय परिवार के लिए अक्षय प्रेरणा रहेगा। आपके प्रति हम हृदय से कृतज्ञता ज्ञापित करते हैं। हम विशेष रूप से आभारी हैं इस संपूर्ण वेबिनार की वैचारिक शिल्पी और विश्वविद्यालय की कुलपति माननीय प्रोफेसर संगीता श्रीवास्तव जी का। क्या कहूँ, बहुत डांट पड़ती है, लेकिन जब अवसर मिलता है तो मैं सोचता हूँ इस समय का सदुपयोग कर लूं। आपके शब्दकोश में असंभव शब्द ही नहीं। परिश्रम, अनुशासन और समर्पण के माध्यम से दूर लक्ष्य को भी कैसे सरल बना के प्राप्त किया जा सकता है, ये अंतर्राष्ट्रीय वेबिनार इसका प्रत्यक्ष प्रमाण है। प्रकृति और परमात्मा के प्रति आपका ये भाव, जिसके तहत आप विश्वविद्यालय की प्रगति को लेकर चल रही हैं कि मेरा इसमें कुछ नहीं, जो कुछ है सो तेरा, ये भाव हम सब लोगों के लिए हमको एक अद्भुत प्रेरक शक्ति से भर देता है। हमें विश्वास है कि आपके दूरदर्शी और अक्षय नेतृत्व में यह विश्वविद्यालय अपनी महत्तम ऊंचाई को प्राप्त करेगा। आपके प्रति भी मैडम हम सब लोग अपना आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। मैं आभार व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं उद्घाटन सत्र के सूत्र उद्बोधक और अर्थशास्त्र के उद्भट विद्वान और एक बेहतरीन इंसान प्रोफेसर मनमोहन कृष्णा सर का। आपने समस्या के व्यवहारिक, सामाजिक और राजनीतिक पक्षों को बहुत सरल, सहज और ग्राह्य शब्दों में हमारे बीच में उपस्थित किया और इससे विषय को ग्राह्य करने में हम सबको बहुत सुविधा होगी, मेरा ऐसा विश्वास है। मैं आभार व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं विभिन्न सत्रों के मुख्य वक्तागणों का। अगर सामूहिक रूप से मैं यह व्यक्त करूं तो प्रोफेसर कृष्ण कुमार सर का, डॉक्टर वत्सला मिश्रा का। आपके विद्वत उद्बोधनों ने इस विषय के विशिष्ट पक्षों को और उसके विविध आयामों को हमारे सम्मुख रखा, बहुत गंभीर बातों को छोटी छोटी बातों में रखा, उससे हम जरूर लाभान्वित हुए हैं। और इस वेबिनार का जो विशिष्ट पक्ष है, जो माननीय कुलपति जी की वजह से हम सब लोगों को मिला, विदेशों से जो लोग इसमें प्रतिभाग कर रहे थे, वो सिंगापुर से चाहे डॉक्टर शालिनी चंद्रा हो, फ्रांस से डॉक्टर अनुरागिनी शिरीष जी हो, अमेरिका से डॉक्टर शैलजा माथुर हो, और अंत में वो युवा मेधा शक्ति डॉक्टर विश्वेश नाथ। अगर समग्र रूप से कहूं तो आप सब लोगों के तथ्यपरक, शोधपरक और सूचनापरक व्याख्यानों से जो हजारों लोग इसका सजीव प्रसारण देख रहे होंगे यूट्यूब पर, उन सबको उनके अपने मन की शंकाओं, प्रश्नों और इस भयावह आपातकाल में जो उनके मन में तमाम भ्रांतियां चल रही हैं कोविड को लेकर, उनका समाधान उनको जरूर मिला होगा। और भविष्य में अपने बचाव और सुरक्षा के लिए वो कैसे जिम्मेदारियां कर सकें, शायद इस अंतर्राष्ट्रीय वेबिनार की सफलता इसी में निहित है। आप सभी का सामूहिक रूप से इस समस्त आयोजक परिवार की तरफ से हम हार्दिक कृतज्ञता ज्ञापित करते हैं। इस कृतज्ञता ज्ञापन की श्रृंखला में मैं आभार व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं इन 2 दिनों के सत्रों को बहुत सहज, सरल ढंग से और रोचक ढंग से प्रस्तुत करने के लिए डॉक्टर जया कपूर चड्ढा मैडम का, और साथ ही मुख्य आयोजक विश्वविद्यालय के कुल सचिव श्री शेषनाथ पांडे जी का भी आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। और आभार और जी और इसके साथ ही मैं आभार व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं डॉक्टर शिवानी श्रीवास्तव का, जिन्होंने इस पूरे कार्यक्रम का संयोजन किया। किसी भी कार्यक्रम को सफल बनाने के लिए इनकी मौन साधना एक प्राथमिक शर्त हुआ करती है। और पर्दे के पीछे डॉक्टर अनुराग, या जिन्हें हम लोग डॉक्टर तो शब्द इसलिए प्रयोग कर लिया क्योंकि विशेषज्ञता के तहत उन्होंने हम सब लोगों को बड़ा अवसर उपलब्ध कराया। अनुराग का भी विशेष रूप से आभारी हूँ, और साथ ही विशेष आभारी हूँ प्रिंट और इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया के उन समस्त सम्मानित पत्रकार बंधुओं का, जिनके सहयोग से हम इस कार्यक्रम को सफल बना सके। और अंत में चलते चलते उन सभी लोगों को जिन्होंने प्रत्यक्ष अप्रत्यक्ष ढंग से इस कार्यक्रम को सफल बनाने में हमें सहयोग प्रदान किया। व्यक्तिशः नाम न लेते हुए सामूहिक रूप से उन सबको समग्र धन्यवाद दे रहा हूं। और अंत में अपनी कुलपति माननीय कुलपति महोदया के इस ऋषि संकल्प के साथ कि रुकना नहीं है, लगातार बढ़ते रहना है जब तक अभीष्ट की प्राप्ति ना हो जाए, इन पंक्तियों के साथ मैं अपना धन्यवाद ज्ञापन समाप्त करना चाहता हूं कि ये मंजिलें भी बड़ी अजीब होती हैं, हासिल कहाँ नसीब से होती हैं, मगर वहां तूफान भी हार जाते हैं जहां कश्तियां जिद पे होती हैं। एक बार बहुत बहुत आभार, फिर किसी तरह इसी अवसर पर मिलेंगे। माननीय कुलपति जी के नेतृत्व में बहुत बहुत आभार।
Thank you. Very well spoken. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. Thank you so much. And with this, we come to the end of this international webinar.
I know. Has
It
been very
wonderful to
interesting.
have all our speakers, all our most honorable guests here, vice chancellors and other professors. First of all, our honorable chancellor,
Professor N.K. Taneja has connected from Meerut, Vice Chancellor Meerut, and Vice Chancellor Kanpur University, Professor Dr. Neelima, and Professor Alok Rai from Lucknow, and Vaisham Payanji from Bundelkhand University. All the Vice Chancellors have found time and they have connected. So I have to thank them for giving us their precious time. Thank you very much. As we conclude,
and with this we log off, and we thank the audience for being such a wonderful audience, and for the team. Have a good day and have a very safe lockdown. We hope we come out of this happy and healthy and together
thank you.
in a better way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.